Hello and welcome to a new episode of Remote Pair Programming. I have with me Bastien David.
Hello.
And hello. And today we will do a very interesting approach that we want to focus on testing, telling a story. That's the idea that we don't want our tests to be dull or quite technical, but we want them to be very clear to the user of the test, who's typically the programmer. So, can you tell a bit about yourself and about this idea and what we try to do today?
Yes, I'm very pleased to be here. So, hi, I'm a developer. I'm starting to coach a few teams to help them to improve how they handle their code base, how they work together. And lately I've been talking a lot with different people, and I have seen that when you talk about TDD, people say, okay, writing tests. Making them pass and then writing the code seems simple, but writing really good tests that you can understand easily, tests that really tell a story, that's really the hard part, I think. And I would like to experiment how far we can go in having some tests that really tell what we want to do, that explain what the code will do, so that we can have a good design and very maintainable code.
So, this is a kind of a step forward from clean code, I guess, for me at least. This is how I see it. It's that, first of all, you need to understand what you need to do and have really good names and really good structure of the code. And after you know how to do that, I think it's easier to know how to name your tests so that they tell a story. Otherwise, can be kind of difficult.
Yes. Um, and also, I think that when you write tests, you do not necessarily know at the time of writing it uh, what you are going to tell. Like
Mhm.
um, you are learning about the system. So often, and I think with that we will try this, we will write some tests to just understand what we want to do, because we are not sure. We are just learning what really the business is, or how we want to design things, or what we want to try. So I really see tests like um, a place where you can try things and you can tell them clearly, and you can just remove them and write others to try something different until you get really the feeling that here you have the right test and the right design.
So it's also important. It's always important to iterate. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Even if you know, if you use, we talk about variable names. If we talk about test structure, test names, even how we group tests, in order for them to tell a story. Because when you talk about tests telling a story, it's not only about one test, one method that does testing. It's about a group of tests that together tell a story. You can never say that you can read a story just by reading a paragraph in a book. Everything needs to be round and nice.
Yes, completely. You have to have some structure, and uh, although tests should run independently, together they tell describe completely your problem. Actually, it just okay. We have this problem, and this will happen, and what will happen when this happens. So it's really about telling when, let's say, a user does this, this is what will happen. So really, we are telling what the system does and how people will interact with it, and how we really want to have this uh, easy flow really written here. So
Mhm.
it's really like we are writing a story, a book, let's say. And I really like to compare what we are doing to writing books, because uh, we are writing mainly for other users,
Mhm.
other other programmers, other developers. So
And
let's
because
try.
you said about that, it's for me it's very important to talk about users and to talk about user experience. I think one of the most important thing is when we do software is to talk about who would benefit from this, who would read that code, the documentation, those tests, who'd use the program, the software, the app, and so on. And talking about users of tests, now with unit tests, typically it's about programmers. With other types of tests, it could be someone else. It could be testers, it could be analysts. It depends on the business and what you're doing. But I think what we're doing today, it's going to be focused primarily on programmers, right?
Yes, and also if we can reach the point where these tests can also be read by non-programmers, then I think that we're a good place.
So these are good tests when you can make them good enough to contain business domain, business terms, so that anyone who knows the business can understand them.
Yes, completely. And I think that we will try also to pay really great attention on how we write just how we name them, because the name of test is really important. And for this matter, I'm glad that we are using Kotlin, because we will be able to write really nice test names.
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna switch to the screen. Let's see what we have here. Uh, you already said we're using Kotlin. So you will be mostly writing. My Kotlin knowledge is very uh, very primary. I don't know a lot about it. Um, and we discussed a bit about what problem to use, and after all, we thought to use this bank kata from Sandro Mancuso. So what should we do next?
Well, I think that we can just write our first test and decide maybe to work on the first feature and see what we want to tell in the code, and see where this leads us.
So when I talk about this type of problems, I try to understand what would be more effective to start with, because we have these 5 requirements, and some of them are based on the others. Obviously, if you have statement filter, you need to have a statement. If you have statement
Yes.
printing, maybe you don't necessarily need to have a statement, but of course you might be able to parallelize those, but it's not that useful to have statement printing without statement. While the others, I think, can be more or less independent. So what would you start with?
I usually decide to start with something that will allow me to learn a lot of things about the problem and what we want to do. And maybe sometimes I try to do something, I learn a lot, and then I see that this is not the best first step. So I go back and I pick another one. So
Okay,
maybe we
yeah,
can pick
we
one and
iterate.
see what
Yeah.
happens. Yes. Because
Okay.
maybe we will just throw away what we did, but it doesn't matter, because as long as we have learned about uh, what we want to do and the problem, that's okay.
Okay. So what would you choose from this set of requirements?
Mm, well, maybe just the first one, because it's the first one.
Okay, deposit and withdrawal. There are 2 of them, but anyway.
Yeah. Let's start with the deposit, because it's
Okay,
better to
deposit.
get more money on our account. So, um, well, let's write a test class, and right now we don't really know where we're heading, so I'm going to just call it a test because
Mhm.
we will name it just after. First, we need to discuss about what story we want to tell.
Mhm.
Then we will name this this group of stories and name our test class. So, what would be our first test?
I like it that in Kotlin everybody's having fun.
um, so we want to deposit some money to our account, I think.
Mhm.
So I want to deposit some money to my account. Now this is a first start. Now this is something that uh, I like about writing tests in Kotlin is that I can write really nice sentences,
Mhm.
and also um, I like to not have a test or a should in my test name, because if it's something that should happen, then this is not something that is happening. I want things to happen because I am telling a story. I'm not telling a hypothetical story of what could maybe I could be doing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a kind of a debate I keep hearing with should or not using should. And as I know it, yeah, it's very different in a way because in British English you'd find should as almost as this will happen. So it's maybe just a way to approach things from the language point of view.
Okay.
So, but some
Yes.
people understand it differently. So I heard about this debate often, but I prefer it myself without should. I must admit that because I feel it's clearer. It's more direct. Okay, so we want to deposit some money to my account.
So here, I guess, also, I like to have this kind of structure in my tests
Mm-hmm.
because it just helps me, well, have a base structure to then write things. And I think that when doing pair or mob, uh, everyone see, okay, we have three main steps, and we can just um, well, actually split the problem in three parts. The story has three steps always, and this is easier to think because uh, when you think about uh, the given, you have to think about what you need. And I always say this is a problem for later because it is not really relevant. Uh, it's just here so that the code will compile and that we can write the code, but uh, it's not really what matters. What's really interesting is the when and the then parts.
Yeah.
So the when is easy because I will have an account and I will deposit money on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to write something like I can deposit money because that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
Now the then is in this case always a problem because we have the question of whether we want to um, open our account class or account entity and see what's inside, or if we want to do it differently. So what would you do here? What would you want to try?
I want to see that I have money in my account.
Okay, and how would you tell it?
Money is in my account.
Okay. Uh, yes. So I'm going to write this here because I let's make the test pass and see how we can reach this point. Then. So what the simplest way to write this right now would be something like this. It's not maybe what we want later, but now let's make this thing compile.
This is what I typically do as well. I just write the code and then I start generating the variables or the classes or whatever. I find it that not many people do that. And it feels strange because I think we're used to create our variables first. That's like the school approach, right? And the classes first. But I think this is a lot better when you try to focus on the story you want to tell. Otherwise, you can get mixed up into what variables do I need, what types are there, what classes to make, and then you lose flow.
Yes, completely agree. So let's have an account. And let's have a deposit. So right now we haven't talked about money. So we're going to give it anything and we'll decide what money is later.
Yeah.
And finally, okay, so this one. How about edge? Okay. So here we have our test. We can run it. It should fail because deposit is not implemented. Something I like to do, actually, it's Xavier Detain who has this idea about GDD. He calls this gambling-driven development, and the idea is that before running the test, you have to say whether it will fail or not, and why it should fail. And it's quite fun to do because when you do it, then you well, you force yourself to understand what you are doing,
on,
and you can't do it if you don't do small steps.
yeah.
If you write a big test, then you can't predict whether it will fail or not.
You can flip the coin maybe, but you don't know more.
Yeah. So maybe let's make the test pass and then we will refactor so that. I don't know if we can refactor this, but we'll try to and see what how we can improve the readability of the test. So now we have this money problem because we haven't defined what money is.
Yes.
So what do we want to do? Do we want to spend time on defining what money is, or define something and then see later?
I wouldn't focus now on defining what money is. I just try to leave here just the concept of money and make a bogus definition somewhere else outside, so that I won't need to change this test when I start understanding what I need about money.
Okay, so we create a class money, we add it, and that's it. Or do you want something more?
No, that would be enough. And probably to implement a method from account.
Sorry?
Probably to implement the method money. I don't remember what it received.
Oh, so it's right now it's not a method, it's just an attribute, and it's anything. And it's not resonant. So right now I'll just still fail. And we should implement it. So maybe the fastest way to make this pass is to simply assign this,
Mm-hmm.
and it should pass. So the first thing we can do is do a bit of cleanup because money right now is anything, literally. So maybe we
Yeah.
do not want to deposit anything on our account.
Mm-hmm.
So let's change type of money to money.
Mm-hmm.
Also, uh, the other thing I like with Kotlin is that um, it forces you to think about what could be null and what should never be null. So here we have this question of can we have null or
Mm-hmm.
not? I like to remove nulls everywhere where I can.
Yeah, me too.
So let's do this. So I cannot deposit a null amount of money because in the real life it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
So let's make this impossible to happen. And also, my account probably cannot have a null amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I can only have no money, but I
Mm-hmm.
cannot have a null account of money.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we can make sure that our account always has some money, and then we have to initialize it differently.
Yes.
So here, uh, the naming is quite interesting because I would like to have no money.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe later we can change the name, but are you happy with this, or would you have
No,
another
this is
suggestion?
great. This is what I would do. But in a way, it's a bit counterintuitive because if you read the test, it says I will deposit some money.
Yes.
So, but then in the production code, I write no money.
Okay. So maybe here what we see is that we are doing two things. We are making a deposit, and also we are talking about when I create my account, how much money do I have on it?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
don't have that. So that story is not written yet when I
yes.
create the account.
So maybe we can go back and not handle this
Mm-hmm.
problem and first
So just leave
see.
it null and write a new
Yes,
story about when creating the account I have no money.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do this. Uh, Also, uh, we can do this, and we can also wonder whether it is right time to rename our test class or not.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I still do not know what it should be called. Do you have any idea?
No, typically when I reach 3, 4 tests, try to rename the name of the class. So I would just go along with writing the new test.
Okay, so let's write our story about um, how we have no money when we create an account. Create account. Uh, it is no money. Is it
Yes.
okay for you or
Yeah, yeah.
you? Okay. I should change my template to have this given when then steps. So when we create an account, then we have no money on it. I'm going to make it pass maybe first. So here we could do two things. I'm going to write both things, both options that we can have, and maybe then we can discuss. So So the first thing is that we introduce this concept here. This is one
Yes.
way to write it, and the other way would be something like this. No, the second one is easy to read, but I'm not really sure that I will need this new method. So
Yeah,
right now,
I
I have,
wouldn't use that because it would have uh, usefulness just for tests, and
yeah,
that's for me a coding smell to have methods just for tests.
yeah. The interesting thing about having the idea now about this is that if later we realize that we need this method, then we can come back here and refactor our tests.
Exactly.
So I think that it's always interesting to see the different possibilities and then decide which one we want to do right now. But just sharing things because we are doing pair, and when we are doing mob, it's even more important. Sharing an idea that we won't do, but that we have has great value.
Yeah, yeah.
So no money. What should it be? It should be money.
It should be money, and for now, I think it should stay in the money.
Okay.
I
So I'm
probably
going to.
eventually move it somewhere else, but for now, I think it can be there.
Okay. So let's do this. Yeah, we can do this. Um, 1 second. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we can just try this and see whether we want to have this one. I'm going to import this so it's clearer. Let's run our test again. So it's failing because right now it's null, and it's no longer null. At least we don't want it to be null. So let's make this pass. And right now, yes, we have this problem that no money, when we write this way, is not a money. So here, let's make this money. I think I want to write it this way. So 1 second, because right now this is not something I've done lately in Kotlin, so I'm struggling with how we can write this. So I don't want to write it this way. I want a companion object. That's it. And I can't have this. Okay, so this should work. Or not. I lost my gumball. Okay.
What's a
So
companion object? What does that mean?
so that's the way that If you want to have, like in Java, something that would be static, like
Mm-hmm.
a static constant. Well,
Okay,
I
I
should
see.
add the annotation. Uh, right now, I think that you can do better than this, but I don't remember exactly. But for today, this will be enough.
Okay.
So this way, uh, if we look at the Java code, we would just have a static member to the money class, because
Okay.
you do not have this static notion in the, the concept of static does not exist the way it is in Java.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is a way to attach something to a class. You can have several companion objects, and they're just bound to your class. Um, I have not seen a lot of Kotlin code using this concept, but I think that you can have uh, interesting things if you want to structure your classes differently. But then again, maybe you should have different classes when you do this. So here my lack of knowledge in Kotlin shows. Um, let's just fix the import here so that we have something that is more readable. And now our tests are still passing. And now we can remove these maybe money here that we have and always have money on our account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's look at our tests. Uh, what do we want to do next?
I would first of all put the second test first. I think that
Yes,
it's important to have kind of precedence.
yes, that's
I create the account and I deposit some money into the account. So always in a test class, I try to have things from simple to more complex and more complex. Okay. And then I would just write the next test.
okay. Uh, Also, the interesting thing about writing this test in this order is that right now, like we were saying at the beginning, is that we are writing a story, and that
Yeah,
the second test is easy to understand if you have read the first chapter, let's say.
exactly, exactly. So that's what I'm always trying to do. And if you were missing the first test, then you could ask yourself, but how is the first account when I create it? It starts being
Yes.
unclear. Now we said it, we want it to be empty. It doesn't have any money.
Okay. So right now, uh, what would be the next test?
It's
What would be
another
the next
thing.
story?
There's another thing here that's a bit unclear on the second test, that we deposit some money to my account with no money. That's what we're doing now. So, or to my empty account, let's say. That's the second one. So what we could do is try to deposit some money to an account that already has some money.
Yes. Also, uh, the fact that it is an empty account, I I tend to I would like to rename our account here to an empty account of
Yes,
test,
yes,
so that
yes.
when I
That
read it, I don't have to only refer to the title of the test.
exactly. That would make things a lot more clear. Hmm.
Okay.
And it's the same, I think, at line 12. It's also an empty account.
Yes, totally. Actually, here it would be
New account.
account. Yes.
New account, yeah. Because you can have an empty account that's not new.
Yes, totally. So you were saying let's write a new test that say I want to deposit some money to my account to an account that already has some money.
Exactly, yeah. And then
Uh,
I I would need to have the sum of the money I had and the money I deposited.
yes. So here we see that we are going to uh, have several problems to tackle before being able to make the test pass.
Exactly.
So I suggest let's write the test to see what we want to have,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe we see, and if it's too complex, we remove it and we will
Mm-hmm.
go somewhere else.
Exactly.
So I want to deposit some money on my um, what would be a good story here? Because I can say on my account that already has some money, but then it becomes
Too long.
quite complex to understand. I mean, if, like we were saying before, we are writing something for readers, uh, well, that's not really nice. So how can we write something nice?
If I would say current account, would that be too unclear or too vague?
Uh,
Or instead of saying deposit, say I want to add to my deposit. If I say I want to add to my deposit, that means I already have money. Deposit in my account. I want, and I want to add money to my deposit. Something like that. We do
uh,
need the concept of money.
yes. Uh, I would write, I want to add more money to my account.
More money to my account. That's even better. So that's the iteration that we were talking about. It's never perfect, but
Yeah.
it's obvious that in the first time it's not good. So the
Yes.
name that you come up with is never good in the first time.
Yes. And also, as we have seen, sometimes it's necessary to come back again after you have your test passing.
Yeah.
And that's okay because what we want here is something that when we are going to come back here is easy to read because it will save a lot of time.
Hmm.
So it's not a waste to spend 2 or 3 minutes discussing how we should name the test because
Hmm.
it implies so much.
And you can even guide you to the good or wrong direction. So that's why it's very important, I think.
Yes, because right now, so we have two options to write this test. We can deposit money twice, or we can make a first deposit to our account.
Hmm.
So like when I'm going to create my account to the bank, uh, they say, okay, give me some money and I will put it on your account because creating an account without any money does not have any sense. So
Yeah.
here is an interesting question. Uh, and this is really here that we will have to have a discussion with the business. And
Hmm.
I find it really cool that when writing unit tests, we have to have a discussion with business people because
Yeah.
this means that unit test is not only a developer problem. It is something that really is important for everyone in the project.
Hmm.
So we do not have any business people here, so we are going to decide by ourselves what we want. Uh, do we decide that creating an account without any first deposit makes sense or not?
I think it makes sense to have an empty account, yes. And then we add some money, and then we add some more money.
Okay.
As far as I know, business wise, you can have an account with no money.
Okay.
in a bank.
So let's create an account maybe this time. Going to deposit some money. Then you say we're going to deposit more money,
Mm-hmm.
and then we want our account to have our own money.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make this compile. Okay, so here we have to have some money, so let's just some money. Oops, not this one. Oh, I'm mixing between Windows and Mac OS shortcuts. Never mind. So here we have a test. I don't think it will pass. It should not pass. And here we have the problem about the amount of money that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we decide? Do we
We
make
we could be very explicit here and start adding like on line 37 saying money, the initial money is I don't know, €10
I would call this first deposit.
first deposit. Mm-hmm. So the first deposit would be 10, whatever currency, and then more money would be 13 or something like that, and then all our money is 23. What, or 40, yeah, whatever. The
So
idea is that in this way we don't couple production code with testing code. The other approach would be to not care about the values and just say we add some money, we add some more money, so that we add some um, helper methods around here. That's where you might be heading with these tests. But I would keep it like that and see if we can go further, maybe after a while, into that direction.
okay. Uh, so here we would like to make this test pass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, so let's make the code compile first. Here we're going to have some value, let's say. So right now we have a constructor of money that takes an int, and I asked IntelliJ to set it to 0 by default wherever money was called. Now, this may or not may be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good idea because right now I can run again my tests and they should pass.
Well,
Oh,
no, because
oh,
we didn't make the
oh yes, because we
deposit.
didn't make what is called like that. I haven't. Uh, Everything else is still working, so
Mm-hmm.
only our current test is not working, which is okay. Now, the dangerous thing about this is that maybe I have made changes at some places where I wouldn't make these changes. Let's go back to our test. Like for example, um, here I see that my second test has been changed to make it compile, and by default, I deposit 0, which is probably not something I want to write. So at this point, we know that this test is not correct and that the first test is not correct. So we are going, here we are in a dangerous situation because too many of our code is broken.
Yeah.
And I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah, it's too big a step to do that. So, and what if we don't give it a default? Can we do that?
Yes, if we do that, then it won't compile at line 22. And we still have two problems. So I would be interested in taking a step back and maybe removing this test here and changing the implementation of the second test to have some money here, because at this point this is something that we are going to need. We have learned that we need to specify an amount to money.
Yeah, so I think this happens because we have a coupling of concepts in between these tests, and it's about, it's typically the problem of creating objects. So how I solve this is by looking at duplication. If you go on the top a bit on the first test, we have there, we don't have there some money, yes. But if you look at the second test and the third test, you have money, and it starts four times already. It exists there. So because of this duplication, you start having coupling in between tests. And the duplication is conceptual, that you are creating that object. So what I typically do is try to extract in these situations some way of creating in the object. So something like an object builder with full-length interface. That will give me a default value that I know, and it will be the same with all the tests. So if I say, give me money with a default value, that could be 0 in our case. In other cases, it's different. Then I won't rely on the production code, but everything will be here in my test code. So no matter what the constructor says, I won't rely on the default value, even if it has it or it doesn't have. So what I would do is I would start creating an object builder for money, where I give it a default value.
Okay. Do you want to do this? So I want to try this because this is a cool thing. Do you want to do this with the code in this state, or should we go back?
It's very interesting that typically this problem appears when you have duplication, and you have the rule of 3. So when you have at least 3 times this duplication, you have this issue. With Kotlin here, I think it's one of the few situations where it doesn't happen when you have 3, but when you have only 1. Well, you already have it for places like line 22, 22, 36, 37, and 38. I would like to do that in a stable situation. So I wouldn't like to refactor that in a situation where my tests are failing. However, what I would do, I wouldn't delete the last code, I would ignore it.
Okay.
And
that works for me.
I would see that my tests pass.
Okay.
And now because I have all the code here, I didn't delete the last test, I can start extracting this object money, the creation of the object money from everywhere to a helper method inside my class, inside my test class.
Yes. Let's do this and let's trick IntelliJ so that we
Mhm.
can. So I'm going to call this money right now. Yes, please. Okay. So right now we have this builder, and the change is everywhere.
Yeah.
And you would like to have a default value set.
Mhm. It already
So
exists now in the top where the field is created.
you mean here?
No, could you please go on the test? Look at 23.
Yes. And what we can do is have a default value for this method so
Exactly.
that we can just do this. Do you want this or not?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, actually, I'm not sure it's a good suggestion I made here because uh, well, I don't see any case where we're going to need this.
Well, if we go a bit, if we go a bit further away, what I would have a money builder class from here
Yes.
that
So
would be fluent. So I would have a method called build that would return money, and this would be the only place in all my tests where I call the constructor. So if you could put there money, something like return money and value. Now here we have value as a field in the money builder class.
hmm,
Value, yeah, something's weird.
and we should uh,
It's
so
value.
by default
Something's.
I can do this to make this compile. Sorry, yes. So
Mhm.
I don't know what.
Yeah, but I'd like to make it explicit that I have a default value. So typically what I would do is I'd like to make it write like money money builder with default value build. So that means that I need another function called default value or with default value. This will return money builder. It's fine. It will return money builder and yeah, return this.
Yes.
And on line 55 and a half, you'd put something like this dot value equals 0 because that's our default value. So now if I want to create money, I would create something money builder with default value build. If I don't want default value, I could not there. Well, yeah, you could do that, but
Oh, no, sorry.
yeah, but
Makes
that's.
no sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. I thought that was here.
I'm saying in the other test or even the production code. Yeah, exactly. Mhm. All right. And now, what I don't have the option to have something with non-default value. So I need another function called with value that would return again money builder, but it would receive the value, and that's like kind of a setter. Mhm. So now if I want to create money with a certain value, I can do money builder with value this build. Now because of this, now I have my default setting, my default value in the tests. So all my tests would have this reference, and I'm not dependent on whatever is the default value in the production code. Because if someone would change the production code without telling me, or without, sometimes this happens, some tests might start failing. And you don't ever want to do that. That's kind of an implicit dependency in between production and test code, and that's very dangerous.
Yeah, I really like this pattern.
So now if we go back to our tests, did we destroy anything?
Yes, they're still passing.
They're still passing, right?
We just have this one that is disabled, but
Mm-hmm.
everything else is working.
So now here, instead of calling money with 14, let's use the builder at lines 39, 40, and 41. So let's
Okay,
call
so
the
you want
builder. Mhm.
to remove this. You want to remove this function.
That's useful for the first test. It's not
Okay.
useful for the second test.
Okay.
But I would like to never call the real constructor while I am adding up tests, because that means I'm constantly refactoring existing tests. And that makes me uncomfortable because maybe I might lose something and destroy the existing tests. And also it gives me flow, so I don't need to rework the existing tests. Let's say if you want to add now, or after a while you want to add currency to the money constructor. It means you need to change all the constructors. So you have many coupling points.
Yeah.
If you have this builder method, you'd have only one coupling point, the place where we call the constructor. And that's extremely easy to change.
Yes. Okay, so let's do this. Yeah, I'm thinking about some things, but we'll see later.
Mhm.
Money builder.
It's with value 40.
So it's 40.
Great.
Okay, so
So now what happens if we re-enable the last test?
it should still fail because we haven't yet implemented
Mhm.
the sum of money.
So if we go now, where should we go? To deposit, right? To account deposit.
So what we can do is make the test pass the simplest way we can, and
Yeah.
then do some refactoring.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we are seeing here is that equals is not implemented in money, so we are
Mm-hmm.
comparing
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
references. So let's do this. Kotlin we can this one.
Wow, is that simple?
And so now we should have something that is better, like
Wow, that's
values
impressive.
are.
It's the simplest way to do that.
Yeah, that's a cool feature of the language.
Yep.
Um, so how do you want to make it best?
So that if we do plus equals, would that at line 9, would that work?
No, but of,
Oh
let's
no.
check. Let's make this pass and then let's see if and how we can implement operators in Kotlin, because I think we can do this, but I have never done that.
Okay.
So let's create a new money.
Okay.
That would be display value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now
Could we use the
maybe he,
builder as well here? Would you use
uh,
the builder as well here? Not now. I mean, now we're just trying to make it pass. We made it pass, and that's great. But in the
it's passing.
refactoring, yeah, exactly.
So
But
so it's okay. Now we can. I mean, this is the right time to ask this question.
mm-hmm.
I and this is a good question, because do we want to remove the duplication everywhere?
And the coupling, because
Yes.
we'll start adding things to this constructor of money while we go on.
Yes.
And I don't like
So
calling constructors. That's the thing.
okay. Um, I have another idea, because yes, I'm not happy with this, but I'm not happy with this because we are currently going to read value of money.
Yeah.
So we are kind of breaking encapsulation of the money
Mm-hmm.
class. And so I would be more interested in writing something that would say this money is equal to uh, this money plus money. Because this is really what we are doing.
Exactly.
So I would do this.
Mm-hmm. That makes
And
more sense, I think, and it's a lot more cleaner and nicer and elegant.
so let's try.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so let's see if we can. All right. And I think that we can. I'm sure. So, no, no. Okay, here. Uh, so just we could write this, and in Java we could write something like this,
Mm-hmm.
which is also valid in Kotlin. So just to show that this is not something that is only
Yeah.
valid for orchids. Uh, okay, so we can do this, but I have no clue of how we can do this. Oh yes. I think I've already done this. Actually, we have to implement the plus, and we can directly use this by specifying operator before the function. So let's try to do this. I'm going to remove this code because this is what we want to do. And in money, let's implement plus. That would take money. And this will return something like this. And our tests are still passing.
Great.
Okay. What should we do now? So here we have I'm kind of annoyed with the fact that we are using the builder here and here a method.
Yeah.
So I would like to change this.
Yeah.
Maybe let's use the builder here and then see what we want to do. So now we are using only the builder and always the same way. I find it is difficult to read. I mean, it's simple because it's fluent, but there is a lot of words written here.
Yeah.
So I would like to simplify this.
Yeah.
Because I really like the pattern, and I think we really need to keep this. And I would like to have something different. Do you have any suggestion?
We could have helper methods that exist in this class for once. So extract this to something like, yeah, I don't know, something like that.
No, that's no money. This one actually.
Yep. And then you could even inline 22. So if you go to 22 and inline the variable,
oh yes,
I think it would look nicer because
yes.
empty account deposit no money.
Yes. Yeah. We create no money twice, but I don't think this is relevant.
No. No.
I'm glad with this. We can keep it this way.
Then
maybe let.
Yeah, and then that one would be something like money. Something like yes.
Okay. So I'm going to maybe
Move them
this here, and we can actually move this outside our test class because we don't need it here.
Another class.
That's not what I want to do. Yes. And all of our tests are still passing.
But now the
Great.
question is no money and some money. Does this belong to the test class or to the builder method?
Yes, let's make this. I think that it would be great if they were in a companion object of the builder,
Mm-hmm.
and we could just, or you know what? Actually, since we are in Kotlin, they can just be functions
Yeah, exactly.
outside. I mean, we do not have to tie them to a class.
Yeah, that would be even nicer.
So, however, maybe I want to put them in the same file than money builder because
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's really here that it belongs. And if we go back to our tests,
that's great.
okay, cool.
Now, the first test has some discrepancies. No,
Yes,
the second, sorry. I want to deposit some money to my account, but now I deposit no money at 24.
yes, definitely. And you said the first test, but the first test,
No, the second one, sorry.
yes, no, but I mean the first test also have this phenomena here, and we have this phenomena thing here.
Oh, yeah,
So this is also a
sure.
question. So
Mm-hmm.
let's deal with this later.
Mm-hmm.
Let's first handle our second case. So here we do not want to deposit no money. I think we want to deposit some money. So let's do this.
Yes.
And whatever. And here we would like to have also some money. So here we have some duplication.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, at this point, maybe I want to remove this.
I would uh, I would remove that because it's business logic. It's important that the value at 24 is the same with the value at 28. So we rather extract just the value or replace the whole thing, the sum n. Yeah,
Okay.
great.
And now with this test, so I was thinking one thing that we haven't done yet is that we haven't done any commit at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
I would
we
have
could,
done like 10 until now, but I didn't want to focus on that as well.
but let's just not commit because it's just it would break the flow
Yeah,
at the interest of the exercise we're doing here. But the interesting thing I would like to say that is that we at this point we could have performed a lot of commit because
yeah.
our tests have always been green, and
Mm-hmm.
that's let's keep it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so here I would like to call the no money function that we have because I don't want to
Exactly.
have this no money thing. And now I'm just interested in knowing if this no money is actually used somewhere else in the code or not, because it is used in the account and in the test because I have not plenty imports, but it is only used at one place, which is here.
Mm-hmm.
So here again comes the question of do we want to use the builder in our production code?
Yeah, I I don't know. For now, I wouldn't change that. I don't see
Yes,
a reason.
I wouldn't either because right now it's only used once,
Exactly.
so it would be too much.
Yeah.
But here again, if we use again a lot, uh, this thing maybe we should reconsider.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's next?
I see that we have empty account in the first and the second. Then the first and second test. And then at 34, we have just an account. Can we be more explicit? Is that an empty account at 34?
Well, I didn't name it empty account because it's empty and then it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
the purpose of the test is to have an account that is not empty and to add some more
Exactly.
money.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe naming it empty account would be not as clear as account, even though account is not maybe the best name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I could leave it like that. Still, we call the account um, constructor a few times, and as I said, I don't like calling constructors. That's duplication. So we use it at 34, at 20, and in the first test as well. Do we see any reason to extract that now, or we can just leave that for the moment as it is?
Um, since it is no argument, I would not extract it now, and it's only two, and so let's apply the rule of three here.
So, oh, you don't have it in the first test.
Oh, you're right.
So you do.
Okay,
It's three.
that's three.
But it's
So
just three is just a. It's
yeah,
not. It doesn't need to be that strict. Maybe it's not enough,
yes.
and we feel it's not enough. So even for me, it's like, yeah, probably I wouldn't move it now.
Okay. So maybe let's write another test.
Yeah.
Um, so do we have a story here? We have. I want to add more money to my account. I want to. Oh, it doesn't hold it. So when I create a new account, it has no money. I want to deposit some money to my empty account. I want to add more money to my account.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that for deposit, that's all.
Yeah. We didn't cover currency, so
Yes.
you could have things like deposit money from one account into an
In one currency.
account with a certain currency. So I don't know if that's useful for the story itself, or we should treat currency in transfers where we transfer from like not one currency account to another currency account. So we make a currency exchange.
So the way I see it is that the question is definitely interesting. Um, we can decide to handle this now or later, and this is a different set of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It's with
right now,
currency.
yes, we have. Let's use again the analogy with the metaphor with books. Um, we have here something that tells when I create an account, I don't have any money, and then I can put money on it. And this is a story that is easy to understand, and I'm quite happy with what we are telling here. And then I want a different chapter and
Mm-hmm.
then test class to tell how things work when I have different currencies.
So then let's give a name to this chapter and continue with the new chapter.
Yeah. So this one would be well, deposit money on an account.
Yeah. Deposit money on an account. Yeah, makes sense.
Now, do we call it test or not?
That's, I think, just a rule that you set up in for everyone. You might call it test or not. I mean, you can see that it's in the test namespace or folder or whatever. I don't know. I don't have a necessarily strong opinion about that. And I think if everybody can search it and find it, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so let's try this and see where it leads. And now we want a new chapters.
Yes.
A new test class. So what is this chapter about? Do we talk about currencies?
We have options. If you go back to the README, we could talk about withdrawal. That's kind of complementary to the deposit. So you always have these options when you create your solution, let's say for this business problem. You can have one problem and go on top of it and add on top of it, because with withdrawal we use accounts and we already have the account. Or we could have the currency that again goes on top of the existing concept of money. We could have transfer that talks about two accounts and how you transfer in between them. Or you could start from something totally different, which is statement, where you don't necessarily need an account, just need some values out of the account. But then you'd probably need to change the account, because you have date, amount, and balance. So you'd need to change the account as well. But so I think for all of them, we need to build on top of what we have. I don't see any other option. So you cannot start from something new. So we need to go very vertical. And I think we could either try withdrawal, we could try currency, or we could try transfer. I always like having three options.
Yeah. So I think that transfer cannot be done without withdrawal.
Yeah.
And withdrawal would be quite similar to deposits.
Exactly. But yeah, it's the opposite in a way. You
So
have a bit more that you cannot withdraw from an account when you don't have enough money. And then it can become complicated. Like you have a credit limit on your deposit account that you can extract more than, so you go on minus on your deposit account, but up to a limit. So then you have limits. So that can become very complicated, in fact.
yes. So I would say that if we go and write stories about withdrawal, we would probably talk about how we will handle errors, like you can do
Yes.
this operation. So this is an interesting topic. And if we go to currency, then it would be more stories about encapsulation,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like this.
Yeah. So then, yeah, if you like it, let's go with currency. Yeah. But I just wanted to go back a bit and see what are the options.
Yes, yes, yes. And actually, now that I've stated this, I'm quite interested in telling stories about withdrawal and see how we can handle errors, because
Mm-hmm.
uh, there is a lot to say about this topic. Like, do we want exceptions or not?
Yeah.
Uh, do Well, yes, it's going to be very interesting. So I'd like to do this if that's
Mm-hmm.
okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's write our new chapter about withdrawal. What should be the first thing that we tell about how this works?
I know that there are two approaches. Testers try to focus on things that will fail. So typically that's the thing that testers are very focused on destroying the system, and programmers are focused on creating the system. And I think when we have this kind of an business case like with withdrawals, we need both. So I often see that programmers tend to forget some corner cases, but I always try to start with a positive. So what would happen if I don't have exceptions? I have enough money. I have everything's nice, you know. And then I start one by one adding the exceptions. So I would start with a very simple withdrawal from an account that has enough money.
Okay, so I can withdraw some money on an account.
Mhm.
Okay, that seems clear enough to start. Then we'll see if we rename this later or not.
Mhm.
Uh, so we need an account, and we'll withdraw some money, I guess.
Mhm.
I don't know, say 30. And then we expect that.
No, that you already focused on exceptions.
No, I would like to not
Yeah,
have exceptions. We'll talk
yeah,
about this
that's true.
later.
That's the balance.
Okay, so let's make this compile. And that would be some money, I think.
Yeah,
10.
and that
Uh,
means the initial account needs to have 40, right?
yes. So
But
do
that
we
would
want?
make it pass. So we just need to make withdrawal, and then let it fail, but still compile. Okay.
So
So now I would make the test right, putting some money into the initial account. The
so I'm going to use
mhm,
um,
40.
and then I would like to talk about this line.
Yeah, yeah, that's a bit tricky. So now it's still red because we need to implement withdraw. And could we
And
implement minus or?
yeah, let's do this. this is still failing because
It's done. You should expecting 0, but it's done. Something's wrong with the test. Balance has 10. Account money.
yes,
Yeah, money.
sorry.
That's weird.
Back to test. Okay, so this line here raises a lot of questions.
Because you're using deposit and you are testing withdrawal, but in your given, you're using deposit.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
The other option is just to make an account with that much money,
yes,
but that would break encapsulation.
somehow yes.
Hmm.
Um,
There's a third approach. So there's this approach. First approach, use the deposit. Second approach is open up the account so that you can make an account with a certain amount of money in it. The third approach is focus on storage. So you know that the account will take money from a database and you change that database, and the account will always take money from there. But in your given part, you'll just set up your database with the amount that you need. These are the three approaches I know. I don't know if you know anything else.
um, now, I tend to use, well, it really depends here because somehow the fact that withdraw is tied to deposit is not necessarily a bad thing because we are telling a story where go to the bank, I put some money, and then I get some of this money back.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to keep line 13, maybe I want to rename the test to say that I can withdraw some money after I have made a deposit on an account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that would be the correct or the more correct name, yeah. A better name.
So this is an option. Now about encapsulation. Um, so like we said earlier, we create an account with no money. So this is one way to do things. Another would be to create an account with some initial uh, balance.
Mm-hmm.
Default can be 0. And when I go to the bank, maybe I want to be able to directly put some money on my account. So
Yeah.
instead of focusing on what is the best technical choice, I'm more interested in understanding what really happens in real life and can how the code can reflect this. So again, I have this business question. Uh, when I go to the bank, what happens? Is it that I come with some money and I give them so that they can put it in my newly created account, or is it something else? And I think that I would make the choice here depending on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
well,
I,
I think it's always like that. I mean, if you think that the business would need an account with an initial amount, then yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is that sometimes I saw programmers breaking encapsulation just for test purposes, and I wouldn't do that.
Okay. Now, on this, another subject that we are already kind of breaking encapsulation here because we are already exposing money of the account.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm not really annoyed with introducing a money parameter into the constructor.
Mm-hmm.
However, since right now we are talking about how we could tell stories, I would keep the deposit and change the test name
Yeah. Yeah,
because
let's do that.
I think that this is really something that we are going to discuss when we write new tests on this subject. And the fact
Mm-hmm.
that I have made the first deposit really matters here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. And let's name our test. I can withdraw some money on an account on which I have made deposit first. Okay, and now I would like to move the deposits in the web
Mm-hmm.
because this is really the story.
Yeah.
Okay, do we want to refactor this more or is it okay for us?
For me, it's good enough now.
Okay, so new story. Uh, what happens if I try to withdraw money on an empty account? So I can do this. So here, let's explore. Let's write a test to just discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what do we want here? So that would be something like I have an account and I try to withdraw some money. What do we want to happen here?
You need to tell the user that the doesn't have enough money.
Okay, so this means that um, withdraw tells us something.
Exactly. It will tell it. It needs to tell something like that. Not enough money. I don't know. You don't have enough money. I guess.
Okay. Um, how would you do it? We have several options here.
I would just write something like that. Um, I try not to focus too much on exception handling details in the test. So it would just be something like assert that count So assert that account is telling me I don't have enough money. I try to be very verbose in these things because, as you mentioned initially, when you want to have not technical people reading these tests, to be with the exceptions, it's extremely difficult to follow if you write exceptions. So that's why here I would just be verbose and implement those methods as helper methods.
Yes. I wouldn't use exceptions here because this is not an exceptional case.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
this is something that will happen. Some people will try to do this, and it's not because the system is failing. It's because this is a business rule.
Exactly.
You will try to remove to withdraw money from your account at some point, even if you do not have enough. So
But even like that, follow, I want to focus on the message to the user. And the message to the
yes,
user, that's what I want to see here in the test. I want to see that the account will give me a message. You don't have enough money to make this withdrawal. So that's what
okay.
I'd like to test.
So what you're telling me is that you would like something like, I don't know. I'm going to write this even if it's not what we want.
Yeah, it's just a message. It needs to be kind of explicit, but that's all. Yep.
Okay. Let's make this pass and then talk about how we can change this.
Yeah, sure. No, it should be red.
So yes, here it tells me that withdraw
Is void.
does not return anything. So
Well, the other test will fail, right? Oh no. Okay. Interesting.
so now
Oh
it's
yeah.
passing because
Yeah.
in the case where everything is okay,
You
we
don't test the result, the message.
don't expect anything.
Yeah. But still, it's not that right.
Yes, so we probably don't want that.
Yeah, but we could leave it like that and then force our system with a new test after that with a message when you have enough money. And so have the message, the success message passed through.
Okay, let's do this. Maybe we can rename this test because we weren't knowing what we were doing.
Yeah, exactly. So
It would be when I try to withdraw money on empty account. Well, actually, the test is not correct because I would expect my balance to stay as it was before,
yes,
and
it's
it's
not
probably
correct.
not the case.
Because it will be negative.
Yeah. So when I try
So
to read,
in a way,
yes,
this test is right, but the name isn't right. So when I try to draw money on an empty account, I receive a message that I don't have enough money. So this is the test. This is good. We need another test that says when I try to withdraw money on an empty account, my balance is not changed. These are what we call micro tests. So the fact that I don't want two asserts, I want to have one assert for each one of these behaviors. Even though they come from the same place, from the withdraw method, I'd like to have two tests because it's two behaviors. One is the behavior of the message and the other one is the behavior with the balance.
yes, I like that because If we decide for whatever reason to change the message,
Yeah.
or maybe because we do not want to have message in English only,
Mm-hmm.
then we will only break one test,
Yeah.
and it's easier to understand why the test failed.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I like about tests is that I find them really helpful once I've written the code, and I like to keep them because they will tell me what is the problem exactly in my code when I
Mm-hmm.
have big tests, and that it can fail because of many reasons. Then I find it has very few value to me because I want the test to be more than just something that tells me it's okay or it's not okay. It's not okay. I want a test to tell me why it's not working.
Yeah.
So I really like this approach here. And what we want to write, so something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So this one should fail because we haven't implemented
Yeah.
correctly withdraw. So let's make it pass. And how would we make it pass? The simplest way?
You just add a conditional and
Yeah.
if money greater than equal than this money, or the other way, this money is, yeah, this money smaller. Yeah.
We
No.
are going to implement this operator maybe to make this pass.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to return something. So I'm going to return an empty
Yeah.
string, but probably we want to.
We'll make a test about that. Mm-hmm. It's
So
not
let's.
right. If so, money is, if my money is smaller than this money, right?
You think that I got this wrong?
Yeah. So
We-
money is,
Money is the amount you're trying to withdraw. So
so
if
it
it's more
it
than
needs
your
to be
money,
smaller than my money, not bigger. Smaller
oh,
or equal, I guess.
I'm
Oh,
not
oh no,
sure.
no, you're right, you're right, you're right. I was thinking the opposite. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's fine.
let's implement this. Sorry, this operator. I think it's this. No, it's not this one. So back to the documentation. Uh, can we implement this? Yes, it is compared to. Okay. So this would be this value. Okay. No, maybe we want to write another test for the case where we do correct withdrawal.
Yeah, but with the message.
Yeah. How should we name it?
I can withdraw some money account. When I withdraw money, I receive a message with, if I'd like to be user friendly, I'd like to give it the balance or something like that. But I can just give it, if I want to be simpler, just a success message. I receive a success message.
Okay. So here we're going to have something very similar, except for the assertion. Uh,
That's something like um, it can be even okay, but success, success,
let's try this and let's
simple.
talk about this approach after.
It's
Let's
failing.
make it balance. So it's failing because okay. No, I like that. The withdraw method returns something that tells me whether it is a success or not,
Mm-hmm.
and I like this approach much better than exceptions because of what we told earlier.
Yeah,
Now, I do not like the fact that um, it returns a string.
yeah. And also you have duplication between production and test, so that makes things a lot more rigid.
Yeah.
So I think we could encapsulate these strings.
Yes. And in Kotlin, you have these things that is called seed class. That
Okay.
is uh, an kind of a way to have an enumeration of classes. So the way we could do it, um, it should result in a better readability, is that withdraw should return something that we call maybe an operation result.
Mm-hmm.
And this operation result can either be a success or a failure.
Yeah, exactly.
And this way, when we use withdraw, we can do pattern matching on the result depending on the type,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that the types are bounded. It can be either a success or a failure.
Yeah.
Then we can implement our failure and success classes the way we want, to have the messages we want. And uh, when we decide that we want to be more user friendly to have the balance, we only have to change one class.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great.
So we really decouple everything.
Yeah.
Do you want to try this?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm very curious how that works because I've never done it like that.
Okay. Uh, so if I change the signature of the withdraw method right now, I'm going to break everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to do this.
What I would do is I would extract strings first into
Yeah.
constants. So strings that are duplicated in between production code and testing code. We have two of them.
Can I do this?
You could introduce a constant, a public constant into class account for.
Unfortunately, IntelliJ is not yet able to do this, so I'm going to have to do it
So
by hand.
you cannot, if you do, it
No,
doesn't
this
have a.
shortcut
Can you
does not
extract
exist.
a field?
This I can.
Yeah, then use a field and make it public. It's the same thing. Just
This one. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Just give it a name.
This one. So this is if a failure message.
Mm-hmm.
This one.
No. Yeah, okay. Now you make them public, and then you use them from the. Doesn't it like? Okay, and then you call them from the test.
Well, actually, I'm going to create a companion object for this one. Same like we did earlier. I can't have this. This is already the case. Okay.
Okay.
And now from the test, let's call them. Okay. And now what is your next step?
Now you can change the type because you had duplication in production and test. Now it's just in one place. So if you change the type there from whatever it is to a type message, everything will work. Well, yeah, but you don't have it, of course.
Yeah. So let's create it here. Uh,
Mm-hmm. But now failure message needs to be of type message, I guess.
yes. So we can probably move these in the message class.
Yeah.
And okay,
So.
let's do something like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my thinking.
Here,
It's a new message. Yeah.
so difference here is that when you set a const in Kotlin, this tells the compiler that this is a constant at compile time,
Mm-hmm.
whereas only val says it is a constant at runtime.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only have const for primitives. So I can have this for string, but I cannot have when I message.
Yeah.
And okay. So here we have
Mm-hmm.
fixed the force, but we have to fix these as well. And if I run the test, it may work. I still have compilation.
You had those references that don't exist anymore. Yep, looks better.
So we can keep it this way, or we can try to implement a sealed class, as you want.
Sorry, to implement that?
A sealed class.
Uh, I don't know what would be the advantage.
Uh, right now we don't see it, and I don't think that we can see it in the tests.
Hmm.
But let me write a new test to show how we are going to use the result of withdraw and how we could use it. Um, so right now, this probably that at some point in prediction code, I'm going to do something whether the message is a success message or a failure message.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, maybe I'm going to have something that if message failure message, there's something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I could also, and maybe failure message is just not good enough because maybe I have different failure causes. Maybe
Yeah.
uh, well, right now I have only two cases, but at some point I'm going to have more than two cases,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going at this point to want to write something like this: failure message. Then I want to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and success. I want to do something different.
Yeah.
So you can have this, but then you only have a message here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that in case of failure, you want a message and a cause and why it why it failed. I don't know. Maybe you want two things, and when you succeed to withdraw, maybe you want a message too, but maybe you also want the balance of your account. You
Yeah.
want a different structure.
I understand. Yeah, it makes
And so
sense, certainly, but I think I would force that to the test. I wouldn't make it
yes,
now.
yes, okay. So let's do this later if we need it. Um, what would be the next step?
I think the next step would be to have a debrief and stop. It's uh,
Okay,
it's about time.
yes, I could do this.
So, sorry?
I could do this all day.
Yeah. I know. Me too. But you need to take a break once in a
Yes,
while.
definitely.
Um, so I'd like to start with what I took some notes here with what I saw during our pairing session. I really like that you were always asking me if I'm okay with the name, with what you're doing. So you were extremely explicit with what you'd like, what you were doing, and you weren't doing something without telling me what you're doing or why or and so on. So I think that's very nice and useful when you're pairing with someone, and it brings this level of understanding and of likeliness when doing this activity. You explained Kotlin a bit to me, and that was very nice. I really learned some parts and tricks. I haven't used it. I just paired a bit with a few people, so I just know a few bits of it. Of course, it's very similar to other languages like Java, a bit with Scala, C Sharp, PHP, whatever, but it does have some very interesting functionalities that I think are useful and they help you very much in some situations. Another thing was about small steps. I think that you always were taking small steps when writing code, trying to figure out if things are working and remaining in that flow of in the green flow. And the same thing with refactoring. We focused on more options. I really like that. That's the way I work. I always try to see options. What are my options now? And even a bit further away. So not just looking at the options that I have now, but looking at the options that I might have later if I choose a certain option. So it's a bit more or less like playing chess. That if I would do this now, I would open a few options and then I think it's better. Or if I don't do this now, I might get stuck. And I think we tried to focus on having the most elegant solution. We came up with ideas, and I think at the end we chose the solutions that are more elegant from our point of view. So those are my notes. That's what I learned from this pairing session. How about you?
Um, I really enjoyed that. Um, I had feedback from you at each step because this is, I'm always worried asking the person I'm pairing or moving what we want to do next, what we are doing now, because the main point of doing this together is to make sure that everyone is having the same level of understanding, that everyone is able to understand why we are making the choices. And sometimes um, people do not give me this feedback, and then
Mhm.
it's harder to know whether I should keep asking them or if I'm bothering people or
Mhm.
not. So I think that it's really it's an important dynamic when you pair and when you work, always giving feedback, even more when you do it remotely. Um, I enjoyed that we tried to focus on telling stories, on calling our test chapters and this kind of thing, because it really changed our mindset of what we are going to write. Uh, I like that you said that we as developers tend to be more focused on building things, and testers tend to be more focused on see how they can break these things. And I think that the idea of writing things like stories helps um, understanding and being aware that we are focusing on the build part, and that exceptions, error cases will be also part of stories and maybe sub-parts of story, and helps or actually performing little steps instead of uh, having a big test that does a bit everything. I really enjoyed the explanation on the builder. This is something I have done sometimes, but not enough, and I have no better understanding of uh, why it is really an important technique. And um, having functions that are not tied to the builder is also an interesting idea that I will definitely reuse in the future. And well, to conclude, I would say it was really easy for me to pair with you, and thank you for this.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you as well for having this long pairing session. I think we can definitely continue in a later episode with with this idea and to see where we're gonna end up with after a while. I think we took the time, and that's good. We didn't rush, um, so I felt that it was a good pace for the things we are doing and explained enough that both of us understand what we try to do. That was good.
Yeah, I agree that I like to go fast, but for this kind of exercise, it's interesting to take time and uh, let time to talk about what we are doing and why. It
Hmm.
kind for me, it's a way to improve and um, learn new things.
Yeah, for me too. That's why we're pairing. I think for me it's the best way to learn from other people. Very practical and sometimes very small things, but that can help you a lot in certain situations. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you for pairing with me. Have fun coding and see you next time.
Yes, thank you. See you next time.